Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Today I'm going to be bringing you the Unified Minds buy list. Obviously this is a monster set and it's a key one for Worlds, so I'm sure a lot of you want to decipher the ones that are most important to get your hands on and ones that you can try and experiment with as well. So we'll kick off with what I like to call the core essentials, cards that I expect to be involved in tier 1 or 2 contenders or have obvious future potential. Let's start off with the trainer cards that you can see on the far left here. These are pretty much going to make up the new staples of our format. Reset Stamp, Tag Switch, Cherish Ball. These are all cards that you're going to see in like a main plethora of decks. Great Potion as well. Really good as a new healing option after losing Acerola and whatnot. We're pretty much left with Super Scoop Ups, Great Potions, and Mixed Herbs. So they'll definitely be an important contender for us. Stadium Nav, I think you only ever need to pick up 2 copies of this card. It's a nice include. I've actually had it in my most recent versions of Pika ROM, and I found it to be useful just because you can Volkner out to try and hit the odds of getting a Thunder Mountain. And I can see that being the case for maybe a couple other archetypes there as well, if they're going to play either a Stadium Split, or if they have a card that can search out items like Volkner as well. Hapu, I really like as a 4-of. She's a fantastic new supporter that we have available to us. Great with discard synergies like the new Mewtwo and Mew deck that's coming out. Maybe into some Malamars, maybe into some other things that like discarding as well. Weak Guard Energy and Recycle Energy. These are flexible enough cards that I believe have future potential for the long game. But for immediate purposes, stuff like Weak Guard Energy is nice on certain tag teams that have key weaknesses. Or even on the new Naganadel Beast Box deck. If you're trying to use Beast Raid, you may as well add in 4 copies of Weak Guard Energy because it attacks for a colorless regardless. And you really don't want to get hit by things like Giratina. So the Weak Guard may end up being a 4-of in new builds of Beast Box. Recycle Energy has been touted for a lot of different things already. Great alongside Porygon Z if you're going to try and just spam energies onto something like a Whimsicott, or try and use it alongside the new Naganadel to use Venom Shot a bunch of times. It's also nice in like the new Aegislash archetype. So there's already a bunch of things where Recycle Energy could see play. But again, it's one of these that's just fantastic to have in the binder because whenever an option arises for you to have like a colorless attack cost type attacker, you'll definitely want to try and abuse Recycle Energy. Same real reason why I've got 4-ofs of U-Turn Board and Giant Bomb. U-Turn Board is kind of like a reasonable include in a couple of different archetypes right now. It's nice for these like sleeping decks alongside Mareep, the new Slumber Forest type stuff that you want to try out. But more in general than that, it's just like it's better than a skateboard if you're not using Jirachi. So it's probably worth picking up 4 because there'll be plenty of decks in the future that might want to choose this over a skateboard. And Giant Bomb's a really interesting one. I have it sort of on here as like the benefit of the doubt. I initially was like not all that impressed by Giant Bomb, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it recently and thinking about having it in their own decks. So I'm going to err on the side of caution here and just say Giant Bomb, probably worth picking up 4 of because there is that potential for just, saying that your opponent has to, if they're going to go for a big knockout on like your main attacker, they're going to get punished pretty heavily for it, and you can like respond on their main threat. That's like the whole intention of the Giant Bomb. It's yet to be seen really if it's going to be all that good. I'm not super impressed by it, but in a format with much, much less gust than we're used to, like people can't get around this Giant Bomb very easily unless they try and go for like 2-hit KO pokes, which you don't mind if you're like using your tag team anyway. So I can see the reason why you want to try out Giant Bomb. So I'd pick up 4 just to be safe. Couple nice tech 1-ofs, things like Xurkitree, great for that 3 mirrors attack, basically a lightning version of Baby Buzz. This may end up being in like new age builds of Zapdos if that does remain a thing. Zapdos probably going more heavily down like Ultra Beast lines and having more power spike turns and maybe even looking towards other attackers for the late game. Could also see play in possibly like a Spiritomb Ultra Beast deck or a Lost March Ultra Beast deck. I think Ultra Beast may be sneaking into a handful of other non-GX builds just to sort of fill out the curve of making sure you have plenty of attackers to see you through the game. Tapu Fini is a really nice 1-of. I think you only ever need 1 copy of this, but it really can flip your Blacephalon matchup in a positive way. If you try and hit a Blacephalon GX on a turn where you sort of activate the Beast Rings, you then force the opponent to not only find all their Beast Rings, but also find a gusting option to get around this annoying non-GX if they want to be ahead in the, like if they want to keep up in the prize race, or if they just knock out this Tapu Fini, they've only taken 1 prize and maybe you can outrace them in that regard. So it's a really crucial tech against Blacephalon. Aerodactyl and Research Lab, I believe, is important enough for you to pick up copies of this. I think his type coverage alone for the Dark decks and for Pikachu and Zekrom is relevant, and his ability is very frustrating for more general tag team based decks and basic builds, which I believe with Cherish Ball out right now as like our main means of searching, there's like a real incentive to only be playing basic GX decks right now, because it's so hard to search out so many other things. So Aerodactyl's ability is like at the best we'll ever see it, I think, for Worlds, and his type coverage is also very strong right now. Obviously, you've got to pick up the Research Labs alongside that. I'd probably pick up 4 Lab even if I wasn't getting the Aerodactyls, just because it is, once again, one of these versatile stadiums that is probably going to be the new face of Fossils from now on. Then we go on to the fire stuff. Giant Furnace is still one of the most impressive cards I've come across in this set. I think, you know, Reset Stamped, Cherish Ball, and Giant Furnace, they're like in a league of their own as cards that you definitely need to pick up 4 of. Like, you're insane if you don't. It's just so way above the curve. And the Heatran GX, I would still consider buying one of them. Its Burning Road ability is still pretty handy, and being able to sort of steal energy for himself can be nice if one of your main GXs gets hit for a lot of damage and you just want to try and put a new threat into the active. The Heatran can be nice. It can get around things like the Latios GX using Tag Purge and stuff like that. So it might be reasonable as a one-of in some fire-based builds. For Pikarom decks, Raichu has really impressed me. I'm a huge fan of him. Tandem Shock for 2-hit KOing, plus Paralysis is really frustrating, especially on like late-game reset stamp turns. And the Lightning Ride GX attack, when you get 5 energies on him, he can just knock out a tag team in 1 hit with like 1 Electro Power, which is really easy to do and low like maintenance. So I think that card is absolutely insane. I like 2 copies. I don't think you ever really have space for more unless you want to build like a full-on Raichu based deck. That's where you sort of go down the like Dawn Wings routes, where you just pivot in between the Dawn Wings when you have a Zero Aura on board as well. And then you just sort of like mix and match with your Raichus. But I think you still probably want to go down the Pikarom route just because it's more versatile and you have better energy acceleration overall. 2 of the new Nagas. I think if you're playing Beast Box or intending to play Beast Box, you probably only need 2 copies. You'll probably play a split of 2-2, so you can still attack with Beast Raid a bunch of times, whilst giving yourself some extra draw power. The 2 copies also covers you if you want to add this into Blacephalon, which is what I've been doing recently. If you do want to go down a Porygon Z, like energy, recycle energy route, and just spam Venom shots, you can go up to as many as 4 copies of this card, but I would only really advise getting 2, and if you want to try out the Porygon Z list, do push up to 4. Tina Chomp, a new Malamar partner. I think you only ever really need 2 copies of this guy. He'll probably play, 2 copies of Baby Giratina as well, and possibly another 1 or 2 like attackers in here also. Obviously, he has good 1-hit KO potential once you've put some preliminary damage on things, either via Distortion Door or Spell Tag, or even I've seen as high as like 2 counts of the Mew, just to use Psi Power in those opening turns to set up damage for Calamitous Slash, whilst also giving you like a good safeguard against Pikarom. So that's a pretty interesting option there. Espeon and Deoxys, I'd only ever pick up 1 of this. I can see it as a finishing move type attack in the like pure Psychic Malamar based builds. If you don't want to play an energy split and you just want to go more heavily down Spell Tag and Tina routes, this guy can be a great finisher with that divide. Even 10 counters is oftentimes enough to close out a game. If you are believing in the Mewtwo and Mew archetype, you've got to pick up 3 of this guy. He's going to be the main attacker, and there's also a handful of GXs that can go alongside that. The Latios GX, again, Tag Purge is great. You may, once again, want to add this just into any old Malamar-based deck, but he's also fantastic in the Mewtwo builds. Dragonite as a 1-hit KO option, and Jirachi removing your awkward Psychic weakness is going to be a must as well. Then we have the dark stuff. I have been impressed by it, and even if it doesn't end up being like a crucial archetype for Worlds, Weavile and Night City are just 2 amazing cards that obviously have potential in the future. Every time we look at new dark Pokemon, we have to think, well, they can move around for free, and we can move their energies around for free. So if we once again like get a reprint of Max Potion, or if we get anything like that, Weavile is just going to be even stronger. So I would definitely pick up 2 copies. Right now, it feels like Umbreon, Darkrai, and Sableye will be like the front men of that archetype. So I'd pick up 2 copies of each of these as well, knowing full well that a Greninja Zoroark tag team might also sneak into the list as well as like a big 1-hit KO option if you've been able to retain a bunch of energy cards. Let's move on to the more believer buy list. These are cards that may prove themselves to be mid-tier contenders or have a good amount of potential from the offset. We'll start off with the Slowduck deck. Obviously, it's meme-worthy. I've not found it to be much more than a meme just yet. I've tried a few different renditions of this, and I'm sad to say I've not made it work in too good of a capacity. So right now, it's only on the believer list. If you do believe in the archetype, though, you do have to like max out on everything. You got to get the 4 of your main attacker, 4 Misties, 4 Lapras. I'd also try and pick up 2 of these Dragonites as well for that Lance Prism Star synergy to give yourself energy acceleration so you don't just lose to 1-hit KO based decks. In the bottom left, there's the Breloom Slumber Forest. I'd actually think about adding just 4 Slumber Forest anyway into your cart, just because it's a pretty nice card if you're going to try and use Mareep in any 2-hit KO deck, or any future hit-and-run style decks. The Slumber Forest Mareep combo alongside U-turn board is actually something pretty reasonable, so definitely something I'd bear in mind. Also, the Slumber Forest might be used alongside Beheeyem if you're going to use Beheeyem Mareep as well as a combo, so that's definitely one to look out for. Rowlet and Serena, these sort of go hand in hand. You're probably going to try and use Super Growth to get the Serena into play so that you can accelerate his other attackers. So if you believe in a grass tanking archetype and you're not fearful of the fire stuff, it definitely could be a contender for sure. Zygardes are an interesting one. Obviously buffing the Zygarde GX. Again, there's potential if there's ever new Zygarde GXs printed. And also if we just get better search for this guy. A lot of the reason why the cards on this Believer list is because they're non-GX Pokemon, as you can see, like for the majority of the cards, and we just don't have the search options for them right now. So they're strong in a vacuum. It's just we're lacking the means of getting them out. Like I would say that as the case for like Beheeyem, Breloom, like a whole bunch of these Pokemon, to be honest. Same thing for Zygarde here. Like if we had more search for Zygarde, even if we just had Brooklet Hill still in our format, like it would be a much stronger card. Same thing for Black Belt. This screams amazing potential, and it's great. If ever there are enough fighting type Pokemon out there. For supporters, there's the blue strategy. I've only just added this on late, that's why it's in Japanese, but yeah, I've only just noticed that. But it's a reasonable card to pick up a couple of. I'm personally not too sold on him. I don't think he'll ever be like a 4 of in lists, but he's definitely like a reasonable card that you could consider. Pokemaniac's one of these that you buy and just cross your fingers that in the future it's going to be a useful card, because anytime you look at a new 4 retreat cost Pokemon, Pokemaniac is going to be the man. Coach Trainer, again, it's one of these cards that I've not been too sold on initially, but after playing in this format a little bit more and more, I've been less and less impressed by the likes of Lily, because you're holding on to so many key pieces. You're holding on to stamps, you're holding on to custom catchers, you're holding on to a bunch of other stuff a lot of the time, and mid-game, Lily just becomes horrendous. She becomes like a draw 2, and that's really, really awful. So I could consider Coach Trainer going into some of these tag team-based decks just to be better mid-game draw. Electros is interesting, nice for the lightning types. He may end up just going into Pikarom decks if you want to have better answers against non-GX matchups, because he is tanky, he has 150, he hits 130, he ticks the right boxes. The only thing for me is he's a little bit too expensive. 4 energy attack cost is just a lot. Giratina is a quote-unquote searchable means of getting E-Hammer. It is searchable because we have Treasure, of course, right now. And the only reason why I wouldn't say he's a core card is because there's nothing really important to E-Hammer. 3CE discards itself already, and Recycle Energy would just go straight back to their hand, so you'd probably just only ever Faber Recycle Energies anyway. So Giratina right now, not much use, but definitely a card that you have your eye out for future if there's any other new special energies coming into the game. Caracosta is a nice one-of if you want to have a good time against Shedinja and you're playing fossils. He could be like a sneaky 1-1 include. Aegislash, if you do believe in this archetype where you just loop your Aegislash the entire time, try and get a bunch of value from Recycle Energy, and spell tags to try and be like your win condition. Overall, I think it's probably worse than like a Giratina Malamar because it's got less versatility in attackers. Like you can't play Mimikyu, you can't play Dawn Wings, you can't play Espeon Deoxys. There's a few other things right there, and you're just missing out on Distortion Door. So overall, your damage is weaker than the Aegislash. Oh, sorry, than the Malamar. So at the moment, I believe it's a little bit less good, but definitely something to bear in mind. Cryogonal, it's definitely no Seismitoad, but it still can lock the opponent out for a turn of using custom catches to try and like win the game against you. So it might be worth adding into like your water-based decks. Right now, there aren't really many water-based decks that I'm seeing, so I don't really think there's a home for him. Beheeyem has a much more interesting item lock. My biggest skepticism behind it is the lack of search options like through the mid-game to keep using his attacks and make sure you chain this item lock. But I've definitely seen some cool renditions, people trying all sorts of things, not just like Keldeo being sat in the active, also things like the Mareep Slumber Forest combo, so people stay asleep and they can't use things like Switch to get out of there, so you're trying to lock stuff as well, which could be pretty interesting. Frostlass is like a hard counter to Zard/Blacephalon, a little bit awkward though, because again, we don't have great search options outside of just like Pokecom, and you have to play water energies anyway, or like unit energies to try and make him work. Jinx is an interesting one if you still like playing Spiritomb in this format. Obviously, Spiritomb, one of the like hardest hitting non-GXs we have left, as a basic at least. And Jinx can help you speed up that process by moving damage counters around your own board, which is interesting. Whimsicott currently, just because, again, the lack of Bull Search right now isn't all that fantastic. Probably still will be a one-of in, like, Whimsicott GX-based decks to help you get into some key pieces. But again, it's one of these cards that just has to sort of lie in wait until we get better Bull Search for non-GX stuff. And Cottony, quick note on that, just because it's an improvement on the current one that we have. This Cottony can draw you a card, so worth it in my opinion. Caldo GX, I almost put on the core buy list. This is a really annoying ability. Obviously, there's Power Plant. There will be a lot of decks playing Power Plant, which is like the key reason why I haven't put Keldeo much higher. Also, bear in mind that Mewtwo and Mew will have like shred attackers in their list anyway. And I think that's kind of the thing keeping Keldeo down in my estimations. Like, people are already preparing for things like Altaria GX going into Mewtwo, so more decks want to have non-GX attacking answers. The only question mark is, will they have enough to get through 4 Keldeos, especially if you add in healing to the list? And the answer a lot of times will be, no, they don't have enough answers for the Keldeo. So if you want to play a quad Keldeo at Worlds or something like that and just really hope to hit the matchup roulette and end up just your opponent not having enough answers to him, he could be a nice include, and you'd probably have to pick up 4 because it feels like right now he's like a quad build, possibly like a one-of if you're going to try and play like Beheeyem or something like that. Just to throw up into the active, or if you still believe in Quagnag, you might want to play a couple copies of this, but otherwise I'd try and pick up like 4 or nothing. Quick note, there is a new Psychic Execute. This is good for the Alolan Egg players out there. You can play a split of Executes because you have Treasures and Netballs, so possibly you only need to pick up 2 copies of this guy, but I'd still pick up 4 just because, you know, they're only commons anyway, so it's not going to be like denting the wallet to pick up 4 copies. But yeah, I definitely see you playing a split of the new and old Executes now, thanks to the Bull Search that we have available to us. Haxorus and Garchomp, they're both Stage 2s, and in this climate, it's very difficult to be a Stage 2 non-GX. It's hard to find them. Haxorus can obviously cheat. He has Treasures and he has Lance. But even then, his damage output still requires you to still be hitting like stadiums every turn and a bunch of energies every turn. So I just feel like he's only worth picking up if you really want to try the Stage 2 shenanigans. Garchomp, similar story. You can use Black Belt for like very cheap attacking options. You can use Gabite and Gibble. They are dragon types if you want to, and have Treasures for some searchability. And of course, there's Lucario, which can be like your draw engine. So that's a cool thing if you want to go down that route, but I do think overall it's going to be a lot of work to get that rolling. So that's why he belongs on the Believer buy list. But that's going to be it, guys. Hope you did enjoy this video. Let me know what cards you're going to be picking up, what belongs on the Believer list. What would you say are the core essentials? I'd like to hear it all down below. Hope this has helped you out in navigating what you need to pick up for Worlds and just in general for the future. So I'll hear it all down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.